YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. Today, we're talking about the quarterbacks that are under the most pressure for the 2022 NFL season. First, I have a top five, ranking the top five that are under extreme pressure, the most pressure on any quarterbacks. The top two really separate themselves. And then I have about 15 more quarterbacks that we'll talk about, why they're under some pressure, why people may think they're under pressure. Maybe I'll explain why they're not. So we'll break all that down. All kinds of offseason videos like this. We'll start to make my record predictions coming up pretty soon here for each and every team. So join us. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Follow us on Twitter. Always talking with you guys on there. Link down below for that. Here's our Twitter. Ask you guys the question, which NFL quarterbacks under the most pressure? Some good debates on there. So always talk with you guys here on the Twitter. So check it out. Again, link down below. Number 5. So first I got the top 5 under the most pressure. Daniel Jones going to come in at number 5. So he's one of those 5 big ones that are under some big-time pressure here. But some people I can actually argue both sides here, because some people may say he might be under the most pressure. And why he does make the list, because he's under a ton of pressure. Why I say why he's not number 1 or that close to number 1 is because, in a way, the Giants may have their mind made up already. It would take an insane performance from Daniel Jones for them to be like, yes, this is definitely our guy. Not picking up that fifth-year option. I still think they're on the hunt for the quarterback of the future, the one that can actually, get them to where they want to go to, is win the Super Bowl, obviously, and contend at least. So in a way, I think, it shouldn't be an insane amount of pressure. In a way, it's almost like you got nothing really to lose here. But why there also is a good amount of pressure is he's got to go out and improve. He has to go out and perform. He has to go out and improve. You get a better coaching staff. They have weapons there. They improved the offensive line. It's not a bad roster at all. So he has to show improvement. So that's why he's under pressure. He has to go, and he's fighting to keep his job. But again, why he's maybe not at the top, it might already be decided. It might already be like, all right, we'll roll with Daniel Jones for this year. So there's not much he can do, realistic that he can do to keep his job. I guess another reason why he's, a top 5 guy under pressure is because they got Tyrod Taylor over there, and I think Brian Daboll is coming in to win games, right? So I think if it's not working out, then he can very easily lose his job. So that's kind of a big one on why he made. I think there was 5 quarterbacks exactly that are definitely under extreme pressure, and that's the main reason why he is on the list here for the top 5. Number 4, I'm going to go with Trey Lance, actually. And we'll end up talking about all the year 2 quarterbacks that are starters or can be starters. I guess they're starters, and then Trey Lance can be the starter, but why one of them, Trey Lance, made the actual top 5, and again, we'll talk about the other ones, it's just because what's going on over there in San Francisco. I mean, it's a win-now team. They have no interest in, taking time off of being a win-now team. They always want to win. The fans expect them to win. That roster expects to win. So if he comes in, he's going to have to perform. So that's one. I mean, they traded a boatload away to get him at 3, and now they kind of saved him for this time. So that's another reason why there's just so much pressure. Like, he has to be good. He has to be better than the guys that they picked him over. But another one is because Jimmy Garoppolo is still sitting there. Jimmy Garoppolo is still sitting in San Francisco, and there's some pressure on in training camp and preseason for Lance to win that job, because it's going to look very, very, very bad if he doesn't win that job. And I think he'll win. I think he'll be the starter week 1, my prediction. I'm not guaranteeing anything. But he could also, if Garoppolo's still on the roster, Lance could also lose that job to a guy that's a lot more experienced in that offense too. So, and then if you take a guy, you finally put him in, and then you have to pull him out because you want to win, that drains a lot out of a quarterback. I don't know a quarterback that has worked out, and I'm not saying it's going to happen to Lance. Not at all saying that, but let's just say the scenario where he gets pulled. I don't know a quarterback that's really worked out in that type of scenario. Extremely rare. Like 99% chance that really kills the quarterback's future there. So there is a ton of pressure for him to get on the field and actually perform. Maybe why he's not at the top is because in our minds, like, it's okay if he's not the best quarterback right away because it's his first year starting, so it's not the end of the world. So that would be why he's not at the top. But there's just so much expectations, and you don't want to get benched for Jimmy Garoppolo if he's still there. And the 49ers are still in win-now mode. They're going to stay in win-now mode, and team is very solid. It feels like every single year. So he's got to continue that run with the 49ers. They got to keep that going. So there's a lot of pressure there for, a lot of pressure for these year 2 quarterbacks. But the guy that didn't even start last year actually has the most. It's pretty crazy there. Number 3, got to go Carson Wentz here with the Washington Commanders. First year there, they traded a bit away for him. And this is pretty much it for Carson Wentz. Like, he's got to perform, and the rest of his contract doesn't have any guarantees after this year. So the Commanders can just cut their losses. We can save the money and just at the end of the day, we just lost what we traded away. And if he doesn't work out, and then he's, somebody will sign him, of course, but it's pretty much the end of the road for him as a starter. This is kind of it. And he's going into, he went to the Colts last year, got a 1-year stint, and he should have played at a better level. But he's actually more of a fit going in the Commanders year 1. The Colts had to adjust their offense a little bit for Carson Wentz. Commanders ran a Carson Wentz style offense last year, a lot more RPOs. There's really no excuses here. He should come in and he should play. He doesn't have to play great. He doesn't have to do that. He just has to play solid. He just has to play above average here, take care of the ball, stop playing hero ball in some weird situations, weird moments. So this is pretty much it for him. Commanders have a lot of expectations on him. He fits, so there's really no excuse there or reason why he shouldn't perform. It's just, again, that's why there's so much pressure, because if he doesn't work out, they have Heineke and they have how he gets replaced. Or even if he doesn't perform, it's pretty much it. Somebody will be signing him for a training camp battle, probably a QB2 next year in his career. Surprisingly, looking in the past, it's not surprising now, but looking in the past where he was almost having like that MVP type season, you never would have thought ever that this guy's career would be coming to a short end, not really because of injuries, but because of performance. So ton of pressure on Carson Wentz. He is number 3. See if that works out. Pretty good team over there, roster for the Commanders. Number 2, 1 and 2. Tough to split these up. I'm going to go Tua Tagovailoa, number 2. The Dolphins built that. They already had a very well-built defense, very good defense. The defense put them in position to win games, and a lot of time they did win games without help of their offense. I remember that primetime game against the Ravens. I mean, they just dominated them, but it just kind of stayed close because the offense couldn't really do much. But there was several games like that. But they still pulled it off, because at my point, they got a very good defense. Offensively, the offense is looking pretty good now too. You get a better coaching staff, obviously, and especially for the offensive playbook and play calling and game planning. Getting prepared getting players prepared, obviously, and then you got better on the offensive line. So we're not expecting the offensive line to go from one of the worst to one of the best in football. It does look a ton better on paper, though. But it still should be good enough where that isn't the sole excuse. They actually could have a running game now because they have a load of running backs. They had Tyreek Hill. I think I maybe already mentioned that, but it's that big. Or maybe I didn't. But Tyreek Hill is in the Jalen Waddle. He's already proven he's continuing to improve here. He'll continue to improve. Cedric Wilson. So really no more excuses for Tua. And really the excuses in the past to me weren't more so like the play calling or the talent. It was more so, he hasn't really got a full shot yet, like a full term. He needed to play better, so there's no excuses there. But so now we expect he's going to start week 1 fully healthy, and he's got the talent, he's got the weapons, so he's got to go out and perform. Also, the Dolphins are kind of loading up on kind of future draft capital as well, so they're kind of in the driver's seat to if we need a quarterback, we can get one. We go get one. We kind of built everything else. So they're kind of almost telling Tua here, like, this is it. You got to play well because we are in the driver's seat to get somebody else here if we can. And he might even improve and play all right. And that's still a possibility. Crazy to think about. It's still a possibility. Again, 1 and 2, I thought separated themselves. Carson Wentz is kind of right. The almost top 3 is kind of right there. But the difference between 1 and 2 is I thought, because there's a brand new staff or brand new head coach, offensive staff for Tua, maybe that would split it up because there's maybe a tiny bit less pressure because everything's kind of new there. That was the only thing splitting them up. Maybe they could insist on him after this year, even if he plays bad. But number 1, I got to go Jalen Hurts. We're going to talk about more quarterbacks after this. Honorable mentions, some pressure guys, then a question mark pressure guys. But Jalen Hurts has got to be number 1 here. This is it. Eagles, much like the Dolphins, have put themselves in a great position for future draft capital to go get that quarterback. They built a pretty solid roster. I mean, they could use some more DBs, I suppose, but they built a very good offensive line. It's been a very good offensive line. It's been and is a very good defensive line. It felt like they improved. They add AJ. They get a big-time, rare type of receiver, AJ Brown, for Jalen Hurts to improve his passing game. They already have that running game to open up the pass. So Devontae Smith's going to continue to improve. Sirianni really started, I thought, the play calling and game plan was pretty terrible early on in the year, but it really changed. He really adjusted, and Sirianni's defense, he was kind of trying to get used to, the Hurts type offense, which isn't really what the background he comes from, which isn't really the type of quarterback. So that's another reason too. They may not hesitate to go get that replacement because of that, because they have the future capital, and because they want to be better. They want to be that Super Bowl team. A lot of expectations there, and so Hurts just has to perform. And they're in that NFC East that's kind of open, like it's very winnable. The Eagles are getting hyped up right now too. A lot of buzz on them, I think, since adding AJ Brown and some of the talent they've added. And so there's some hype on them that they could win the NFC East. They can go back to the playoffs. Remember, they were in the playoffs last year, so that also apply some pressure. Let's get back to the playoffs. Let's win this division this year because we can. We have the talent. So just so much pressure on Hurts. Another guy that I think, he can honestly play all right, but they could still replace him. They can not be afraid to get better, find somebody better because they have the draft capital to do that. So a lot of pressure here to improve, mainly in his passing game because he's a fantastic running quarterback. But let's talk about some honorable mentions. Throw Kirk Cousins in there, and I thought there was 5 that were clearing away of the 5, and I thought about Cousins next because they bring in Kevin O'Connell, offensive-minded head coach, just came from the Rams. He has expectations to win a Super Bowl. He has expectations to throw the crap out of the ball, really, and they have talented receivers. Cousins played all right last year, but it won't take Kevin O'Connell or just this team long to understand or learn if Cousins is O'Connell's guy or not. They will determine pretty early on if he's the guy. So he has to perform, and he might, even if they determine he's not, he probably will be the starter next year as well. So that's probably why he's not a top 5 extreme pressure guy, but it's not too far off because the decision, probably will be made after this year. And it's fair to think he'll play as good as last year, and that's good enough there. It's definitely fair to think that. So he's got to perform this year, even though it's a new playbook, new staff. He's got to perform. He should be familiar with everything as well, though. So he's definitely got to perform. Or are they going to be looking for the quarterback future? Are they going to draft one next year? They had opportunities to draft some of those guys that were sliding this year, and there was some that thought they may do it because they did their homework on them, and they kept passing. So maybe they're thinking about Cousins. Maybe they're thinking about next year's draft class quarterback. So some pressure there for Kirk Cousins. Maybe you wouldn't think it right away. The Jared Goff is next. First glance, this is probably one that people would put in their top 5 or under that extreme pressure category because the Lions are building everything right. They're getting some talent in there. Goff's just got to play better. They got to be able to win games. They can't finish last in their division because they're capable of doing a little bit more. So that makes sense. That's why there's some pressure there. He's got to play very well to keep his job. But I do think mainly it's kind of already decided. I think Goff is kind of that bridge quarterback. Usually you consider a guy a bridge quarterback if the future guy's already there. I don't think he's there yet. But I almost think it's kind of determined. They're building everything, which I like. They're kind of building everything around the quarterback first, everything. And they're going to attack that and wait for the right guy and attack at the right time. So I think it's already decided that Goff isn't their long-term answer. I think he would have to play out of his mind. I think he can play good, and I still think they would draft one next year's very solid quarterback class projected. But I think so. I think it's kind of already decided, so it's kind of like Goff's just got to go out there and play, and he's got to play better, but he's not going to lose his job. He'll eventually lose his job. I think there is no way around that. So it's kind of like, again, pressure to play a little bit better because they got to perform a little bit better, but really it's just go out there and play because I think the future is kind of in a way decided there in Detroit. Ryan Tannehill, it's almost the same thing in a different way. I think the Tennessee Titans' future's kind of in a way decided already. And a lot of people will put Tannehill at the top because they just drafted Malik Willis. So this is probably a fan favorite of putting Tannehill extreme pressure because he just disappointed. He started the game with interception. He ended the game with interception. He threw 3 total in that game. They could have won that game against the Bengals. So, I mean, that would be the reason he's on here with some pressure. The honorable mention is because he's got to play a little bit better in the bigger games. They can't just be a run-first team. And there's some pressure about deciding his future. But again, in a way, I think it's kind of already decided in Tennessee. He's not going to lose his job this year. It's going to be very, very, very tough for them to pull him, even for a good prospect like Malik Willis. I think he might be even the guy next year. I think what's determined here is we're going to ride Ryan Tannehill out, and then when Malik Willis is ready, we're going to go with him. And the only thing that's stopping that is if somehow a better quarterback comes into play for them, but that's unlikely, or if Ryan Tannehill wins the Super Bowl. Really, that's what it is. So there's some pressure that he's got to go win that Super Bowl. I guess that's what it is, and bounce back off his last performance. But in a way, I think it's kind of go out there and play because it's kind of already decided. He's going to get his opportunities next couple of years, and maybe next year the pressure goes up. Malik Willis, maybe year 3, maybe next year, not ruling it out. But so Tannehill's an interesting one. Jameis Winston's next. Pressure just to take care of the ball. He was starting to do so before the injury last year. They gave him a 2-year deal. They also have Andy Dalton. The Saints aren't a team that's not afraid to get better as well. So if they feel they see a quarterback that they can get in the next year, next offseason, that's better, I think they'll go get him. But for the most part, so that would be the reason why he has some pressure. For the most part, I think they're definitely riding out Jameis Winston here. I don't think they're going to bench him, even though they have Dalton there. But they gave him a 2-year deal for a reason. They were really looking forward to the Jameis Winston experiment last year, and it was looking pretty solid. I thought, not great, but solid. And then he unfortunately got injured. So I think the plan is, and I know Peyton's gone, but the staff's still there. It's pretty much the same staff. It's same front office. So I don't really think he's going to lose his job. But again, if he doesn't play great this year and they have that opportunity to get better, I think that they may try that next offseason. I put Matt Ryan on here, probably the least of the group, but the Colts, we know the Colts are not afraid to be one and done with the quarterbacks. They're not afraid like, it didn't work out, let's go get the next guy. And some may think if the Colts don't make the playoffs again, does Frank Reich get fired? I think Frank Reich's actually a pretty solid coach, but and then if he's gone, they bring somebody else in. Does somebody else want Matt Ryan, or is he a different type of system? So there's a big bunch of questions there, mainly because the Colts are not afraid to move on from a guy after 1 year. So if Matt Ryan, doesn't get them to the playoffs, who knows? Who knows there? And then year 2 quarterbacks, some of them, we actually talked about Trey Lance and the big pressure guys, and we'll talk about Mac Jones in a second here. But Trevor Lawrence, you kind of can argue both sides because, this is supposed to be this great prospect, this great quarterback, the elite guy of the future. And we saw, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert get there just like that. Now this is Trevor Lawrence's time to do that, because there's so much expectations on him to improve. And a guy of that caliber, a prospect of that caliber, cannot have the same season he had last year. He just cannot. So that's why there's a good amount of pressure. Why maybe he's not on the extreme pressure, because it is only year 2, but the main thing is Trevor Lawrence, it's that type of situation where they will insist on Trevor Lawrence no matter what. They will ride him through his player option, even if he's struggling, because it's that type of guy. It's that prototypical quarterback, a lot of upside. He has the traits. So he's not at all under pressure to lose his job this year, next year, year after that, But the pressure of him to improve and play like that guy he's supposed to be definitely exists, and that's why he's on his honorable mention. Zach Wilson's next. It's kind of the same situation. Lawrence was first. Wilson was second. Wilson, I don't see him getting benched or losing his job long term if he performs at a low level, but they up the talent there. They want to win right now. They up the talent around him. So it's pretty much the same thing. He's just got to play a little bit better there. And then Justin Fields, another guy. I don't think he's losing his job. It's a pretty similar situation. I think maybe he's under a little less pressure because the Bears didn't really build the offensive line and the receivers around him yet. I think next year they're about to do that. A lot of cap space next year, so next year will be a little bit more pressure. And then Davis Mills, who played well last year, the Texans kind of bought into him. But and so you may say he's not under much pressure. That's the guy. That's the guy of the future. They're gonna ride it out with him. I'd say maybe not so fast. Right now, that's what they'll say. But if he struggles, And they have a top pick again in a very good quarterback class. I don't think the Texans hesitate at all to take a better quarterback. So I do think there's some pressure under Mills. It might be more so Mills than Fields right now. So he's got to continue. He's going to play like he did last year and some a little bit. So those are the guys with, you can kind of argue both ways, some pressure, and then some kind of question mark guys that people would mention and how you kind of can argue. Kyler Murray is because he needs that new contract, right? And he didn't get it yet. And he was pretty disappointing down the stretch. Mainly that playoff game was very disappointing. It kind of showed that, can he be the guy in the big-time games down the stretch in the playoffs? Can he handle that pressure? So there's some pressure on him to continue to perform better and to earn more money on his contract. But I think the contract's going to happen. I think it's going to happen before the season. So I don't think he's playing for that contract. I could be wrong, but I don't think he's really playing for that contract. I don't think he's playing to get replaced or not. So I don't know if there's a little bit of pressure to perform better in the bigger games down the stretch, sure. But I think mainly people want to mention him as a big time pressure guy because of that contract and things like that. And I don't know if that's fully there, but I understand it. Lamar Jackson's kind of the same thing. Needs that contract. Surprisingly hasn't got it yet. Maybe they want to see him improve a little bit more as a passer. To do it. It's Lamar Jackson. The Ravens offense is built for his style of play. He's a big-time player. I think he's going to be there for a long time no matter what. So I guess the pressure is just playing for the dollar amount, perhaps. And then Mac Jones, I think less pressure than the other year two quarterbacks, but they made the playoffs last year, and he played very well. He played like the best rookie quarterback, so maybe there's some pressure to stay like that and continue to play like that. And they drafted Bailey Zappi, but I think they just saw a really good fit, like a Mac Jones type player. It's just a perfect backup, which the Patriots have always valued, having a number of backups or solid ones. So I think they just really valued having a solid fit backup in there. I don't think there's any threat of Mac Jones' job getting taken. I think they like him a lot, even if they take a step down this year. So I don't, again, try to get back to playoffs, try to perform as the same way you did or better than the other, year one quarterbacks or year two quarterbacks that you perform better than. So maybe a little bit there. Marcus Mariota be next, just because he could lose his job. Desmond Ritter's there, and I guess this year's because it's a 2-year deal for Marcus Mariota and the Falcons, but essentially it could become a 1-year deal very, very easily. They can move on from him, and they actually could save money. So he's basically playing for his job, so there is pressure there, but it's a rebuild stage. It's not, I think it's just kind of go in there and play for Marcus Mariota. Go in there and play. They're probably looking for the quarterback of the future still. I think things are kind of already been decided there, so I don't know if again, he's kind of playing to keep his job in a way, but I don't think it's that much pressure under Mariota. It's just kind of go out there and play your game, and we'll go from there. Russell Wilson, I see people mention Russell Wilson. Maybe, because he didn't play that well last year. Again, he missed time. It felt like he came back too early. He just got a pin removed from his freaking finger, whatever. I don't imagine how you would play off that. And he didn't play that well after that. So I think all of us, or at least most of us, are optimistic and saying, yeah, he's going to play well. He's going to be fine. He's not going to look like, the injured Russell Wilson. He's going to be fine, and that would be my prediction. That's what we're all hoping for. But I guess maybe some of us in the back of our mind are saying, what if he continues to play like that? So there's kind of pressure, because the Broncos went all in on you. There is kind of pressure to go back and playing, the way you were playing. But I don't think Russell Wilson's going to feel any pressure. They're not going to give up on him anytime soon, because you would have to struggle an insane amount, and that's not possible, and they still wouldn't give up on him. So I don't really feel the pressure there. You kind of can create the storyline coming off a weird year, and the Broncos traded a haul for you. The Rams just did that with Matt Stafford. They won the Super Bowl. So I guess there's some expectations there, but it's another one of those situations. Just go out and play. Go out and play and get better with your team, with your new team. There's no threat like go win a Super Bowl this year. We got the next year, we got the year, and they'll have to give him a contract, I guess, who have to play for future years on his deal. But I don't really, and again, I can argue it. I can understand it. I just don't feel a whole bunch there. Then Sam Darnold, I think a lot of people will say him because right now he might not even be a starter. Could we be throwing Baker Mayfield up here, whether it's the Panthers or not? Maybe Jimmy Garoppolo with a different team, possibly. Maybe the Panthers don't add anybody else. They don't even start Darnold. They start Corral. It's a possibility as well. But let's say, right now it feels like Darnold will be the starter. Is there pressure to play better? I mean, he needs to play better, but I don't think you only can go up from here from Sam Darnold. So I don't think there's that much pressure there. It's just kind of go out and, yeah, you got to play better to win more games, but it's just, there's no going down from where you're at. It's just go out and play, and they're looking to replace you either way. They may do it second I'm done recording this video. So, yeah, again, these are some more guys that you can argue the pressure is valid. It's present. But I'd say maybe not as much. That's probably what I would say. Not as much, but maybe it's there. Not as much pressure as some people may say. But all these you kind of can argue both sides, most of them at least, even some of the guys in the top 5. So that's why I thought this was pretty fun to talk about. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. We're always talking on Twitter with you guys. A lot of updates there. So make sure you follow us there. Also, like, subscribe, turn notifications on. We have full NFL coverage. Can't wait to get into all the predictions and more here. So join us. That's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.